startups need to work on?
Great. So good morning, everyone. I'm Abhishek. I'm part of the investments team at IAN Group. Erstwhile Indian Angel Network. However, this was our genesis is basically circa 2006. That's when we began as a platform for, super angels, HNIs, family offices to come in and invest collectively. Since then, there has been significant evolution in the ecosystem, so have we. Today, we are basically deploying it through two different funds across different stages. We have a series seed to pre-series A focused seed early stage fund, which is a Cat 1 angel fund. And from there on, we are investing anywhere between 1 crore to 6 to 7 crores. So nothing beyond that. For larger tickets, we have a category 2 fund. This fund is again broadly agnostic. And there we are investing anywhere between 8 crore to 25 crores as the first check. The second fund is roughly a $100 million plus fund. So that's ballpark. So some 870 odd crores. We have already done some 12 to 15 odd checks from this fund. This is a second growth fund. Fund one was between 2017 to 2021, wherein we had made some 40 odd investments in the growth stages and some early stages as well. Overall, our portfolio, I think, should be in the ballpark of 300, 310 at this point. Two-thirds of them are actively or operative startups. So we have a significant success rate in terms of startups surviving for next stages after we have supported them. So today we are basically investing again in summary from pre-seed to Series A, writing checks between 1 crore to 25 crores, and then progressive checks in subsequent rounds, and broadly agnostic. But we have core focus on opportunities which are IP driven. So a lot of deep tech is something where we're investing. We are investing in a lot of life sciences, healthcare, biotech, agri-tech, climate. These are some areas where we think there is a lot of progress that can not as progress. There's a lot of depth that is some yet to be explored. So from a thesis lens, that's where we are. Yeah, I'm happy to talk more about it one-on-one. So please reach out. And to Dr. Sahil's question now. Could you repeat that? I mean, just contextualize it. Should it be in the context of just startups or startups and incubators?
Incubators. So the sessions today, the focus of the session today is to point out, improvements, what incubation centers can do in order to, get their startups more ready, more,
Okay.
not just more investor ready, but more business ready at the same time, right? Because we have about 1,400 incubation centers in India right now. The number will cross 2,000 in a couple of months. And next year we'll have added incubation centers, including your Atal Tinkering Labs, including your, innovation cells at the colleges. There is a very big ecosystem that has been created, but the facilitation somewhere requires a bit of an improvement. This session solely focuses on that part, right? We have
Okay.
this is the session where we are critical about what are the things that are lacking in the current system, and what are the things that the incubators can improve so that the startups are a bit more ready, a bit more market ready, a bit more investor ready.
Okay.
Right?
So I'll quickly talk about how we evaluate and assess startups that should basically put in the foundation for what we look at. And then I'll jump into what startups can do and how incubators can help them, right?
Mhm.
Now, just to set up some context, I've been on the business end of, running an incubator as well in the past.
Mhm.
Uh, Having raised capital from Niti Aayog under Atal Innovation Mission, an established incubation center. So we were also investing in startups through that capital, raising capital from a few family offices to set up a sidecar fund. Also, basically getting capital from the likes of AWS, Facebook, and Meta across different stages, European Union as well. So essentially, I'll also bring in that context as to how my experience as an operator was at that point. Now, broadly speaking, when we or any of my peers in the ecosystem are looking to evaluate early stage opportunities, there are three things that we primarily focus in very early stages, right? One is the team, and it has to be an hybrid expertise wherein we are looking for a balanced view in terms of the makers, the product guys, the technology guys, somebody with a sales acumen, and operations jobs, right? These are super critical. The idea is to basically understand that, as the company scales, there will not be issue with, talent distribution. Now, these roles, I'm defining roles, not individuals, right? Now, these roles can basically be taken up by one or two or three or four co-founders. Solo founders are also not that they cannot work, but I'm not insisting and emphasizing on the fact that we only look at multi-founder companies. I'm defining the roles. Initial stages, these roles can basically be played by one or two people as well, and then the team can grow. So team is basically at the center of everything. Now, the way we look at it is we have a framework which essentially identifies founders at the core of it. And then there are adjacent pillars that we basically establish to see how this foundation can be built, right? Think of it from that lens, if you imagine that structure, right? Other is basically what is the value proposition that they're building upon. If there is core technology innovation, or is it just an incremental process innovation? Right, somebody will have to mute. There's a background noise. Super. So yeah, that's one part. The second thing is basically again on the IP side of things. So we look deeply into the IP. Especially at this stage, we know that it is not something that will be commercially scalable, right? So we are looking for early signals of validation. It could be in the form of patents, and then basically research paper which are peer reviewed, or effectively if there is clinical data, if it's or lab data, the vet work that's being done to validate it. Now, this validation can also come from the industry, that you have industry deployments. In case of an enterprise, this should actually come up with some design partners, that you are working with some enterprises who are giving you all the data for maybe training your models or effectively trying out the product, get feedback, and then build it out. So these are areas where we're looking at a pre-revenue company where we can write a check, right? Progressively, as they scale, we can look at the first 10 customers. If it's a consumer company, first 100 customers, at least one channel distribution sorted. So if they're distributing quick commerce, e-commerce, and offline, at least one channel needs to be cracked, right? Offline is rare, but if that is there, that's basically cherry on top on the consumer side of things. If I'm just talking consumer, it's physical goods, D2C. Now, effectively, with each sector, we can define those benchmarks and parameters. Now, typically, I prefer the founders defining it, because they are the ones who understand their ecosystem better than I do, and that's our presumption, right? We can always come in and validate whether they are in the right direction or not, and whether we resonate with their thought process or not. So that's the third bit. So team, IP, distribution, jobs, right, is basically what we categorically look at in early stage. Now, and this is true for any startup at an incubator or outside an incubator. Now, incubators can play a significant role in, first of all, collating all of this information in one place, right? Today, and I'm telling you in my days as well, the first challenge I had with startups, and I probably could be quoting and people might disagree, and this is a public forum, and they might say that, Abhishek, you are being super critical and it's not how it is. I'm happy to disagree, and you should come up and say, Abhishek, I disagree with you. Now, those disagreements are welcome. Again, we'll build a dialogue, right? But in my opinion, it was a challenge round. Data was not easily available or structured properly. Now, as an incubation leader, or as with my team, the first things we did was basically build out operations to help starters curate this information, how to put together a deck, how to put together a data room, how to think of the fact that if everything goes well, there is due diligence, which is where majority of the startups actually fail. We don't basically let go of, when we write the term sheet, post that. But the time it takes for a startup to make or break, right? Post IC approval and money is basically a long bridge called due diligence, right? Legal, compliance, financial, and there, we have so many challenges, right? Where it's just, it kills the company because they don't get the right oxygen, the right money at the right time. So you're depriving yourselves. So the idea is from day zero, be very compliant. Incubators can help with that. check boxes of, all your simple compliances like ESI, healthcare, food benefits. These are simple ones, right? And then there are, these the different regulatory approvals that you have to get in place for your product, for your distribution, if you are a medical product, for example. So all of those things basically need to be checkboxed. This is where incubators can help. We have seen companies making mistake in terms of filing their patents also. Now we have enough money and grants being available through various resources, which is where incubators can again help you get access to that capital to just get that right, right? There are patent attorneys that can get, that are available in the network. So leverage those. So incubators, anyways, as I see, everybody has basically prepared a strong infrastructure, a strong network to provide all of these resources. All you have to do is just say so, right? However, startups need to basically understand the fact that when an incubator is insisting on putting together a data room, it is critical. Incubator should think of a startup as an investor itself. The moment you basically step into those shoes, I'm not expecting you to basically start assessing because you may have your opinion, but all I'm saying is as far as preparation for fundraising is concerned, an investor's mindset is something that an incubator has to assume so that they can help the startup prepare for all of those things. And the startups need to adhere with that discipline, right? So checklists, checkbooks, like your daily catch-ups, your weekly cadences internally to see what's happening. Then it roll ups into monthly reviews. Publish a monthly review one pager, which can go to the incubator. Now, incubator may not need it, but it's just healthy practice, right? Once you will have a board, and that board will require quarterly updates, right? So all of those things become disciplinary, and you can essentially inculcate that into your culture and practices on day zero. And incubators can essentially help that. We actually did a lot of work in this case. One of the reasons why we had some early successes being a very young incubator and a privately funded incubator in the very beginning, I'm talking heydays of 2015, was essentially because of the fact that we built those processes, talking to investors and mimicking those ideas because success was looked at as funding. We looked at some funding as gateway to further success, right? So while for TR, if funding is a milestone for us, it was just getting started. So we wanted to basically ensure that it is there. We did not glorify fundraising, but we basically ensured that fundraising is successful and whatever it needed, we essentially focused on that as one pillar, and that helped. Today, all of those things are basically helping me also identify which incubators are good ones to go to, right? I talk to incubator managers, CEOs, we look into the processes. I know for a fact that if I have to go to an incubator A, I will get all the resources, I'll get all the information in one place, and my job will be easier in terms of scouting companies. Whereas agar those processes are missing, then I know that I still have to talk to those founders, but it will take me some time to now basically work with them to get the data, right? To get all the information in place. And that's super critical. There is nothing beyond it. Everything else basically just fall in place. Everybody is there. But this is one critical piece that I see is missing and needs a lot of work.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was very insightful. And I do agree, due diligence is that black box that most startups fail in. But there's also a second part to it that not every startup even requires funding or investment. The current ecosystem has glorified getting or raising funds so much that startups are more focused, or incubation centers have aligned themselves to a point where the focus is more on raising the fund than building the business, right? And and in that process, forget due diligence, even the startup suffers, the business suffers. Jimesh ji and Mitesh ji, the two of you are serial entrepreneurs who've been part of the investor ecosystem, and at the same time, as a founder yourself, you've been of the startup side of things. You're also two individuals that have been able to raise funds in the past and have that experience that comes about building and maintaining those investor relationships, including the black hole of due diligence. Right. I'll start with Jimishi. Jimishi, please introduce yourself, not more than 2 minutes, and then let's move on. And I'd like to know your take on the subject.
Thanks for the inviting. Hey Abhishek, hi Nidesh. Not a serial entrepreneur. Good to hear that, but not a serial entrepreneur. Predominantly worked, in the corporate in the transactional banking domain at a senior role for throughout my career, and then started, the vibrant ecosystem for the startups. But yes, having said that, we also joined, one or two startups where, we play an active role. So yes, I'm a founder that way. We raise the money there as well as our, we run a fund through which we invest in the startups, right? So Growth Sense Venture Fund, which is my, angel fund through which we invest in the startups, typical early stage, investor, don't mind writing a first check also in the company. Uh, See, at the stage where we invest, we don't have a, even financial of the company, right? So, and also I run a Growth 91 platform, which is, the marketplace through which we started investing. Till now, we have done 90 plus investments, and keep on investing. This is our bread and butter, which we do, day in, day out. But it's not only funding, because funding would be the last thing which, we'll be seeing it. Since we are the founder ourselves, we have seen the journey. So what all, things where founders are lacking and how we can help them and then fund them, right? That's the criteria. But as a principle, unless we invest, we don't even offer, those deals to any of our investor. When I say we invest, founder also invest in every, startups, right? So that plays some skill in the game, and that helps, investor also gaining trust more on the, investment what they're looking for, right? Uh, so I've seen a journey, on the startup and the fintech domain. Predominantly a fintech guy, spent good amount of time in Bangalore and then came back to Ahmedabad, still settled between Ahmedabad and Bangalore. I do work closely with the incubation center and Gujarat ecosystem now. Wanted to go back to Bangalore, but now a lot of things are happening in Gujarat. So, settled in Gujarat, but yes, settling between, Bangalore and Ahmedabad. Yeah, so I mean that's about us. I have another co-founder who's based out of Maharashtra. He's IIT Kharagpur. I'm Ahmedabad alumni, and one more co-founder in Gurgaon. So we are three co-founders having over 85 years of experience. All experienced folks, are doing the investment, in the startup ecosystem.
And Jimishi, what do you think? A few pointers where incubation centers can improve in order to make those startups, just provide a better service to the startups.
So yeah, I mean, maybe so I'll just try to, explain what all we expect, from the founders in the incubation. I think that will answer, your question, right? So as I said, where we invest, we don't have even financial of the, startups, right? And when I say I don't mind becoming a first check, so I'm just betting on the founder, who's the founder and who's running the show, right? What happens is nowadays, startup also incubate anywhere, they feel it right? Wherever SISF fund is available, they'll just go and, simply incubate there, right? I mean, for my per se, I mean, one feedback again, I mean, there is no consent per se, but that's a feedback to the incubation. There has to be some filtration criteria for the startup to be onboarded, right? Because you can't onboard anyone and everyone. That ultimately, spoil the overall output, what investor wants, right? Secondly, this is my personal observation and I would love to prove wrong, but all the majority incubating startups, they have become used to with the grants and SISF funding, right? If there are two co-founder, one co-founder will be working with, which is the, grant left out, and, he'll start applying there and, work on that, right? So predominantly there are few pockets, where I've seen the founders spent amazingly, high time on the fundraise, right? Even if, there are few example where I've even visited 10 months back, the founder was raising the fund. Even after 10 months in the other, event also, they are raising the, fund at the same valuation, same time, right? So I think that's where incubation a larger role comes at to connect with the right, investor, right? There are good number of angel investors are also increasing the country, whatever we say, but thanks to Shark Tank, visibility has increased for this, asset class, right? So a lot of, investors are coming in this domain. A lot of expert, in the particular domain are also coming and investing, right?
Farmer. Okay.
Maybe he wants to say anything. So, I think that could play a role. Second, just thinking aloud, but wherever the grant is being given, I think if the early stage investor also tag in that time, I think the tracking of that money will, be more important for, incubation as well, because that's the big thing, lacking. I mean, I've been seeing a lot of startups, they are on grant, after 10 months also they are done with the grant and they are not raise any money, right? So they are looking for one more grant, right? Or maybe they'll put a blame on the incubation. They just release the 60% and 40%, they'll be releasing later and blah blah things. So I think if early stage investor tag along in the first grant stage only, I think that could be the best validation for the startups. One more, I think maybe, but I have seen from the many incubation sites, they have a budget to disburse the money in some time, right? So how they can try and get few startups and disburse the money, which also becomes not good, because actually good startups left out in that case, right? So how that process can also be improved, that could be, I mean, that I'll leave it up to the incubators to decide, but would happy to be a part of the brainstorming session and help and giving some suggestion on it. Thank you.
I think
Very well said, Jimesh. Very well said. I must top up, and Jimesh is basically, going an extra mile by saying that he will actually come at the stage when grants are being given. Grants are non-dilutive. Effectively, investors look at it de-risking, that founders should utilize all the grants available, and then we can come in. So if Jimesh is basically coming at that stage, and I think that's an inspiration and should be a goal for all of us. That's actually commendable, and lot more. It takes a lot more courage than anybody else. It's just riskier at that point, right? So that's even commendable. So I think but again, Ramesh, if you have a playbook for it, we would love to know. We would love to see that.
there's a lot of knowledge sharing around, right? And I think those points are absolutely valid. We had those conversations yesterday where a few of the investors had a similar view. So our conversation with Kobe yesterday, who leads GVI investments from Europe, leads about 30 countries. The way they work is they collaborate with the Austrian government or the local governments, release the sanction grants to the startups, and then bring co-investors to diversify the grant or the generic investments. And that model seems to be working very well, at least in those parts of the world. In India, I do agree with you that if you were able to get investors at an early stage where you're just getting your first grant, whatever 5 lakh rupee, 10 lakh rupee, because yeah, the grants on paper, maybe 25 lakh rupee, you don't get those. You get 10 lakh rupee, 12 lakh rupee max. And not just that, but there's also a second section to the grants in India, and that's the toxic grants. Many grants get sanctioned, but they're never disbursed. And founders spend a lot of time in the hopes that they are getting that money and they will rather use that money than to raise and get another round. If an investor comes on at the same point as the grant, it will at least create a brief buffer zone and a more experienced individual to mentor that startup how to navigate through those troubles. Because a financial cash crunch at the point where you have been sanctioned the money but not received the money, your team is still hungry for the salaries. And that is something that is very difficult to manage. And I do agree with Jimesh because as so in my first startup, I did exactly the same thing. I spent so much time just applying to grants and incubation centers because when you're a first time founder, people are also looking for recognition. Recognition comes from association, association comes from incubation centers. So just applying left, right, and center to different programs, whichever gives you a little bit of money, whichever has the potential of giving you a little bit of money. There's also a lot of false hope that goes around in the ecosystem where you do the program at the end of the program you may get the money. So founders spend a lot of time doing that kind of stuff, and you do take a step back from the core of the business. You're not building the business anymore, you're just spending time on that. Mitesh ji,
So I mean,
you've
just
heard
adding
the
one
two
point,
talks, you've heard the two takes. Yeah, Jimish, you want to say something?
just adding one point on that, and maybe Abhishek can correct me if I'm wrong. But for any investor, financial advisor, be it grant or the SISF or the Nidhi Prayas, or that's not the funding. I mean, I will never consider that as a funding. Maximum startup comes, we are funded. Why? Because we have got 30 lakh SISF, or 20 lakh SISF, or maybe 15 lakh first tranche. That's not the funding for me, right? Nowadays, if you see, maximum startups are coming that we have got a matching offer, or I mean, some matching mighty some offer 50 lakhs, and if they need some term sheet from any investor, so that 50 lakh can also come. Now see the time what founders are spending just to find one investor, because someone has given the offer or term sheet that they are ready to put, but there has to be one more investor to along with him, right? So I think if we try to solve this thing, or maybe incubation center can help founders getting that stuff clear, I think a lot of startup founders will get benefited out of it.
Absolutely, I do agree.
I'll just add one thing, right? So in 99 cases out of 100, I agree. But I've seen one of those cases where I have learned that founders have come up and they have said how judicially they used those grants, right? How efficient they were in utilizing that funding. And that gave me so much confidence that this guy will actually have a strong fund utilization plan, right? Everything else is separate, but that planning that comes in is very critical. So I think if, and again, this data is something where again incubators can come and help as to how well they have utilized those funds. And that data is something that every incubator reports, but nobody cares about that KPI to insert, keep that as a North Star metric in your investor updates and or incubator updates. And but that's one piece, if reported properly, can actually expand the chances of any startup to get future funding by a lot, by a higher factor, right? I'm saying 4x, 5x chances are increased if you do that. But that rarely happens, and hence I also don't consider that, if they have gotten SISF or they've utilized this grant, as to how beautifully they have gotten about it. But in each case, we do ask, what did you achieve with it, right? And that's, if that's available, that's presented, that's articulated well, is a very good, it's a proxy for understanding of, financial metrics, stickiness.
I agree with you, right? Grants are something that gives you an initial boost whenever they're disbursed. And if you use it right, it also gives you a bit of a confidence that, okay, I'm able to manage my money right. It gives the confidence to other investors as well that, okay, when given money, the startup actually utilized it well to grow their startup. Miteshji, you've heard the two speakers. I'd like to know your take on the matter.
Thank you so much, Dr. Salil, for inviting. Great to hear always, Jimish, and glad meeting you, Abhishek. So I've been on the other side, right? So on the startup side, and fortunate to have gone through the entire cycle, the early angel investment, then grants. I've taken twice grants. One is from the NI in the early startup, and recently SFIFS as well, and then able to close the pre-series A in the same year. So I think yes, I believe I think it goes a lot to an individualistic how they look at uh, their startup in terms of the journey, right? So if you and as Jimish and everybody pointed correctly that few people in the early stage think of it as a credit of association. A lot of recognition goes in, people celebrate that we have received grants and all, which is very short-sighted visibility of a startup, right? So that is not what you started for. Obviously that helps to you in terms of your near future to get more consumer, some more validation from the future investors and all of that, but that's very minuscule. So I don't think celebrating it a lot in the beginning, and then mostly what I've seen people are that they are looking at this grant as an opportunity cost of getting the first job in the beginning. So they're happy that they are far better than what they would have done as getting the first job or second job at this whatever salary that they could have drawn. Uh, and then not able to utilize it in the right way, and then death valley is near because there are a lot of ifs and buts in the grants, as we know. either in the form of disbursement, sometimes from the central side, sometimes from the incubation side, and then not able to raise or not able to start monetizing users or getting decent revenue in the early stage. So at the end, maximum startups are dying because of that. So, but I think I will agree to what Abhishek is saying, but not 1%, but I will say maybe 8 to 10% people do understand that these grants are actually the booster required for extra 3 months or 6 months of survival, and then they are utilizing at the right places. Those who have a long-term vision, right? So they do understand that I'm not here to take salaries and waste money. I have to effectively use it. The only problem is mostly these grants are very small check sizes, and what Jimmy said is correct. 5 lakh, 10 lakh, 30 lakh is not an investment that you can, in today's world, either build an MVP, but you don't have a marketing budget. Even if you have an MVP, this is not a sufficient marketing budget. So any which ways, I don't think these budgets are something that define that your startup is going to survive, right? So I think the irony is that if you get 1.5 crore, 2 crore, then the grant disbursement committees are critical in terms of evaluating you by saying that you have crossed that benchmark. And too early stage, even if you get grants, only grant doesn't make you believe that you're going to survive in the nature, right? So I think it has to be a balance. And as Jimmy rightly said, that if you get a grant in the same month, same quarter, you get some sort of an investment in early stage from the angel, by validating the traction, not validating the grant, utilizing it effectively, then I think the chances of survival and growth accelerate. So it goes a lot on individualistic. How do they look at their grant? When are they getting the grant? How they are utilizing? And at the same time, incubation centers can control to a certain extent, but when it comes to building products, scaling, marketing, and operation of an everyday, it's a founder's role. So you have to keep a deadline, right? So you don't have to go in comfort zone. Sometimes I've seen the co-working spaces and grants make you a little bit comfort, and then at the end of grant, you are seeking another grant. Ideally, that should not be the scenario. At the end of grant, I think either you should have an amazing revenue or the next fund should be ready in your cycle. So we have been fortunate to do that. So actually, I've got twice grant from the same LJ college. I'm sure they would have seen, and that is why they would have given second time grants as well. But at the end, yes, the startup has to be on the right track, and nothing else, right? So nothing else matters.
Yeah. I I mean, I do agree with you to a certain extent that if a startup's on the right point and they're using it right, then obviously there is some credibility there. What I've also noticed is that the Indian ecosystem, the startup ecosystem, is still developing, right? It's still very early, it's still very fresh. The mistakes that I made in my first startup, I'll never do them in my second. As simple as that. And so when we go ahead, that number of 1% going up to maybe 7 or 8%, this percentage may increase over time as more and more experienced founder or more and more ex-experienced founder come out of the cycle, right? You fail a couple of times and then you use that experience and then you don't make those same mistakes again and
I
again.
think that is where the role of incubation center comes in. So let's say, talking to them that don't waste this money. That is the mentoring part. Obviously, incubation plays a lot of mentoring part, right?
Mhm.
Keeping the founder in the right direction, because the founder is connected to incubation center where he or she is taking grant from. I think that is where a little bit of education, understanding, if you will do this, the chances of failure is higher, don't do all of that, is little critical part that incubation centers are playing as well. So I think that is where, and apart from that, in my case, I have taken one more advantage of incubation center. So I'm a consumer product, right? So I need the consumers, and all of these incubation centers today are either in the colleges or the universities, right? So why don't you utilize the early go to market via these colleges and universities as a go to market strategy? So there are other advantages that you can take. I launched my product from LJ. I went to class in the beginning. I think I've given 8 to 9 class. The college has given me 1 hour to go and interact with 100 students to educate them about the product, run some campaignings inside. So there are multiple ways that you can utilize, not just incubation center, the fund, the college, the distribution center, everything in the early stage. But the irony is, yes, not everybody is effectively using it the way it should be. And there are certain caveats that sometimes the grants are delayed because of whatever government compliance is, the certain rules and regulations. But always I tell all the founders that do not consider grant as the metric to success. It's, think of it like you've taken a lottery ticket. You may get it, you may not get it, but you are not here to play the lottery. You're here to you play the longer game. If you get an additional fund, more credibility, more validation, that's good. But if you don't get it, any which way you never started your startup for the grants, right? So that should not be looked at the only source and the primary source, because there are a lot of, see, I think getting angel investment from Jimish is far easier if your product is right. As he's saying that we do sign the first check, that the timeline to get the first check in your bank will be faster than some grants, because grants incubation centers are also dependent on the some government compliances, the timelines that they have to maintain of sourcing fund and distribution and the documentation, which I'm sure Jimish would not have those stringent timeline. He can disburse it faster, if and he can validate, right? So whether you need that fund in the first week or first month or not, like that.
No, I agree with you. In fact, the first day of the conference, right, which was the focus on incubation centers, we discussed a model where incubation centers come as a gateway to business rather than gateway to investments, where incubation centers can use their organizations, their network, and and actively bring business to the startup, and take a profit share, a sales revenue of that share to keep themselves sustained, instead of focusing, because currently incubation centers themselves are so reliant on the grants that they've received, that they've not focused on the other verticals. And right now is the time when they're starting to navigate through the waters, trying to understand how they can earn a revenue and sustain themselves. So this model definitely helps both sides. You bring us the market, you bring us customers, you get a percentage of share, you get a sales revenue, the incubation center survives, the startup survives, and then you obviously have a proof from the market, right? And that's when the investors can probably come in and then help you scale. That's where it can come from. uh, a second thing that I want to discuss here is, not every startup even requires investor money. They are so stuck in the loop that without investor money they will never be able to scale. And I say this because, surprisingly, over the past couple of months, when I've been interacting with a few startups myself, the other ones, um, I've come across startups that are doing 1 crore a revenue, 2 crores a revenue, and they are freaking out, they are panicking because they're not being able to raise funds. And the question is very simple to them, like, why do you need to raise funds? What's your utilization? Oh, we are going to do it in marketing and scale. How? Oh, we haven't really gotten down to the entire planning of it. So the utilization part of the fundraising, that is something that I think founders have not considered to a very large extent. And that is where incubation centers need to come in and actually sit down with them. Say, like, okay, you're coming to me telling me that you want to raise 5 crores. Where are you going to use it? Let's sit down. Let's break it down. Let's see how much of that is actually going to convert into real revenue, real customers, and then plan that fundraising round, rather than you know just supporting a blind fundraising event. What's your take on that, Abhishek?
So I think, Jimmy can also, I mean, will be better place, and he is in the right, he's in the heartland of that, that thesis that Danda.
Danda chahiye.
So as every Gujarati entrepreneur would say, Danda mangte hain, right? Danda chahiye. So bottom line is incubator should think of the same lens from their P&L and from the starters P&L also, right? Now the fundamental thing here is that, see, one way to grow a business organically is to have free cash flows, right? Now, not all ventures, not all businesses will basically be generating free cash flows at the end of the year to reinvest in the venture, right? Now, not all founders are also basically very well to do in the sense that they actually have the right resources to self-fund that company, right? The way I look at it, I was an entrepreneur and I left it and I'm not going back until I know that, that I have some family responsibilities. I have certain, and I'm being vulnerable here, right? I'm being honest. For me to basically get back into an entrepreneurial stint, whatever that may be, right, is the preparation includes at least 15 to 18 months of runway for my family if I don't earn anything. And then essentially ensure that I actually at least invest one third of the capital required for that 1 year runway in that startup, and my co-founders will also do that. So 1 year runway, self-funded for our venture, and then 15 to 18 months runway for my family's expenditure. If I have that kind of money, I'll go back into the venture game, startup game. Now, essentially, that should not discourage anybody to take the plunge right after college. I did the same, and I don't regret it at all. I could risk a lot more. I had lesser responsibilities, but it is a function of how you should look at it. So if you're leaving your job, ensure that you actually have that insurance and coverage for that. Now, coming back to, this is very critical because founders are looking at sustenance, which Mitesh also covered. And I wanted to basically piece that into why that matters, right? Now, I don't want to go deeper in there, and that's because that's not the subject here. The fundamental thing is that if you're looking at fundraising, look at it from the lens of, and you rightly said, how will you scale your business, right? If your business is not generating free cash flows, you will require external capital. It could be debt, it could be grants, it could be equity, right? But you still need it. You can just go to a casino in Goa or Las Vegas if you're good at card games, make your money there, come back and invest in the venture, right? So all I care is you should have that money. All a venture would care is basically sustenance, right? So if you're not having free cash flows, then you have to go and raise capital. That is that is paramount. That is non-negotiable. So I think it is part and parcel of knowing that you actually have to scale, you have to raise. But no, I am not considering that I should see free cash flows for a company making 1 crore of revenue. A little burn, somewhat of a burn to scale, but scale righteously, to scale judiciously, use that money well is very critical, right? You can be loss making at the end of the day on the P&L for 3, 4, 5 years in a row, but it should basically go into right places for the scale bits of it, for product, for IP, for talent, right? And that's critical.
Fair enough. Jimishi, what's your take on the subject?
So I think the question is, they don't know the utilization of the fund. Right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
Right?
they don't know the utilization of the fund. They're not able to plan their business model right. Just a basic business plan that is normally missing in the start of the fundraising round with for the most of the startups. And this is where the incubation center should come in, I feel.
So exactly, I mean, that should be the primary role of, incubation center. And I have a very large disconnect where the startup, is giving away, couple of percentages advisory to the professor of, theirs in the college or institute where the incubation is there, right? Without any, support, taking the support. So I think this is where the incubation center, can be a great help. And if some incubation center is setting up a team for this, I mean, you can always onboard some consultant who can help, or, whatever way you want to do it. But I think that will differentiate that, specific incubation. And I think a lot of startup would be benefited out of it, right? That's one. Secondly, fundraise per se also, as I said, I mean, the stage where, they are looking out the money. I mean, my first question is, are they invested in the company? Other than the time, are they ready to put the money? If they're 100% convinced they are ready to take investor money, why are not they raising the money from the friends and family at a lower valuation, make them also happy, and create wealth for them, right? So I think if that is also the thing, because the moment you take the investor money, you're married. I have all the rights to come and ask you all the question, or a bit so-called, asking a lot of questions, or interfere in the business. So, and that also not the problem, but if you should be fully committed, right? I mean, there are a lot of cases, I'm working, but if I raise the fund, I will leave the job, otherwise I'll continue my job, and both the things, right? It doesn't go well with, you can't wear both the, heads, right? At some point of time, somewhere you'll have to leave that thing. And I think Abhishek, so when I started, my company, obviously I'm coming from the background where I had a salary, I have done my, saving. But when I joined also, I was ready that 18 months I'm not going to have my salary, right? First thing I did is, I became completely debt free, right? I was not having any debt on my head, right? So even though 18 becomes 28 months, I will not go in stress, right? Because I know that some other way I will survive. And I think that that's the fair point which any other founder should also have it. But otherwise, wherever we invest, say at the end of the day, we also try and help them with a lot of other things, right? So, I mean, where the utilization will happen, and also there are few cases where the term sheet, we have given it for the hire, but we have disbursed in tranches, because we know the moment they use the marketing word, they will not even realize that when the entire money has gone in digital marketing, right? So how to curtail that? So that also we give it in tranches just to ensure that they are on the right track, and the fund is not being going in anywhere else, right? But wherever first round also, even they invest, I mean, it's clear that they should be raising the money for at least 15 to 18 months runway. Otherwise, every 6 months, assuming, each fundraise, they'll be spending 3 4 months. No point in raising the money for, 8 12 months, kind of runway. Because nowadays, every founder feels that, the moment they have idea, the company is 100 crores worth, right? So valuation also they come up, and I'm not sure from where they get it. But ultimately, founder will have to understand the early stage, whoever is the believer, you should always give us some benefit to them, right? Because ultimately they are holding your hand when no one is, holding your hands, right? And at the end of the day, when some right investor comes and, you are doing what you expected, I think next round will obviously happen at a good valuation.
Absolutely.
Can I add a word in this? I'm Sunita from SSN Incubation Foundation.
Ma'am, can we take the questions in 10 minutes?
Okay,
Would that be okay? Thank you.
that's not a question.
Absolutely, absolutely. Right. I have a question just in general. Abhishek ji, you mentioned a lot about due diligence. You mentioned a lot about data rooms. And it is absolutely important for a startup to maintain one. But every time as a founder or the founder community that I've spoken to, when I'm telling them, when I speak to them about the due diligence, there is no specific checklist that they have that they follow. And different domains have different things, right? If you are a more technology oriented business, the IP documents are involved. If you are a D2C business, then all your other segments, your verticals, and your distributions involved. Can you help us understand what are the basic checklists? So I'll come to you first, Abhishek ji, and then Jimishi. A basic checklist that an incubation center should follow when it comes to maintaining a basic due diligence or a basic data room. I think there's some issue with Abhishek ji's recording. I will start with Jimishi then. All right.
I'm back.
Okay.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. You're audible. So we'll start with you again. Uh, a basic checklist that incubation centers should follow in order to maintain the data room and the due diligence process of startups. I think uh, I think we've lost him again. We'll start with Jimishi, and once he comes
Yeah,
back, then we can start with that.
anyways, so the question is, what incubation should follow the checklist, right?
Yeah, like a basic checklist.
See, I mean, I think basic checklist, it's depending on the startup to startup, but at the end of the day, basic checklist for us is, especially I'll talk from my perspective at the stage where we invest. What I need is, the founder, who's the founder of the particular startup. Whether he is 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, whatever he has done it, that the basic, the concept, proof of concept or things, whatever he has done, that is being validated by the incubation. If I'm getting the deal from the incubation, or because today nowadays whatever deal comes to us, it's all unfiltered, right? Because they are just incubated, we are getting all the stuff from them, right? Secondly, I have a little doubt, on maintaining all the data, because I think startup founders are also very smart. They are also incubated at multiple places, right? Whether they'll open their entire book at one incubation, especially when they are incubated at multiple stage, I don't know. But somewhere, at the stage where, I am investing, I think as an incubation center, you should have a sector-wise investor data for early stage and the growth stage, right? Because the moment startup reach at a pre-series A, series A, I mean, trust me, I mean, they would not come to even incubation to ask for the next fundraise. They'll do at their own, or maybe the earlier investor will help them, right? So if the startup is a fintech, then you have a list of fintech investor in the country who are actually good in terms of after investment also they'll help you in doing a lot of other stuff, right? So if that is there, I think that will be clear up. Secondly, particular startup which grant or which fund is available for them from the government. I think if that things are clear to the startup, I think what happens is today, if someone is not eligible for X, but they're still going and applying the sustainability grant, which is being offered by XYZ, right? So that is killing the time for a lot of, a startup and the founders. That's second. Most of the startups, trust me, I am coming from the hardcore business development background of, my 17, 18 years of journey. Most of the startup at the same, some point of time, they'll struggle on the go GTM only. They need a GTM support. How you can solve for it, you have a lot of people in the country who can help a particular startup. If that data is also maintained, I don't think that will create any problem for the startups, right? So that's the larger few things. And obviously I'm as I said, the first point in my conversation, if you have a some uh, little hard criteria for onboarding any startup as a incubatee, I think that will also solve for the purpose. Because if you start filtering some idea, filtering some data, and then onboard the startup, I think that's given. Then investor would not be worried about evaluating all the deals. Because put yourself in investor shoes. If I start getting 10 deals in a day, I can't evaluate. I mean, whatever AI tool, and I don't be dependent on AI tool, right? I mean, I would love to do few things at my own, because I'm putting my own check, right? So unless that is clear to me, nobody is going to, invest or, or hold the hand of that particular thing. Secondly, there are a lot of very active incubation center who really do a good stuff in terms of the calling the VC, or calling the people and giving a lot of good suggestion things, or maybe create calling the VC from the particular sector and inviting them in a particular incubation center. If that can also be done at incubation center frequently, I think that will also help big time to the startup founders. I think these are the larger thing which at the early stage, which I would think these are more than enough for us to, start evaluating the deals.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Abhishek ji, what would you think are a few due diligence checklists that an incubation center should follow, or what kind of data room should an incubation center maintain in order to, be more efficient in this process? Hmm. I think it's still having some technical issues. We'll go to Mitesh ji. Mitesh ji, my question for you is on the other side of things. Startups are often asked for a lot of data, right? They've been asked, let's say, if you're going to GTM, then we are talking about the actual, what's your go-to-market strategy, what's your traction been, what's your financials like, what is your compliance like, have you followed through all the data points, what are the, what's your ITR, show us all these documents. From the startup point of view, is there a hesitance there? Because what Jimishi said is very true, because I am incubated in 5 incubation centers. If I am going to circulate every document of mine, let's say the financial document or just the compliance document, to different incubation centers with different emails, different Google Drives, my data is too much out there. Is there a hesitancy in the startup ecosystem, because you are working in the ecosystem to in terms of the social networking of startups? Is there a hesitancy when it comes to giving out their data, proving that the business that they're claiming is actually happening?
I don't think there should be any resistance, but the only challenging task is the kind of data, the purpose of data. So, for an example, if there is an objective to certain kind of data, right? And then the agreement to data has to happen in the very first place. So, as we do with the investors, right? So, we decide the rights that the investor has on the very first day. The frequency of giving data is also decided, let's say once in a quarter, once in a month, once in a year, whatever you decide. And then that has to be followed. But let's say, just for the sake, if sometimes incubation centers do not understand and they put all the data to write down. So, for example, we got once a due diligence list of 79 documents, while the amount of investment was very minuscule, right? Now, for me to source all of the data, and there is no objective that all of the data is required for this particular judgment. So, just everybody has to understand mutually, right? So, if incubation center is asking for certain data, they do have a right, but they need to understand. So, do they need further decision making? Fair. Do they need for the next round to understand how you're going to utilize the fund? Fair. But just for the sake, if they're creating a checklist and sending it to anybody, I don't think it makes any sense, because then the founder will be busy collecting a lot of data, and then instead of focusing on the important task in the beginning, there are hardly 4 5 10 people, right? And because they don't want to avoid this grant system, they are going to collect, and if they do not have certain time the right metrics, they might even fake it, which was not required, because the data has no utilization for the incubation center as well. Just for the record, they take an internet chat GPT list and they send it all the data. I don't think it should be like that. It has to be mutual. So, for example, in my case, I'm a social network. So, if in my case a incubation center is asking what is your DAU versus MAU ratio, fair, right? What is your go-to-market strategy? How are you acquiring user? Fair. What are you looking in the next 3 to 6 months after utilize this fund? Fair. But if they ask for certain things which doesn't make sense to the business, to the future, for the past, just for the checklist, they ask, I don't think it makes sense. So the due diligence of the data, as Jimmy pointed, from product to product, company to company, varies a lot, and it has to be done in a way that it is minimal effort but critical effort. So instead of 100 data points, give me 10 critical data points, and this 10 critical data points in the minimum time frame and with a high frequency. Let's say every quarter you send me this data, so I will keep tracking your growth, and let us just discuss on this part, which is the heart of the business, the growth, the retention, whatever. In my case, retention is very much important. So that is why DA versus MAU data is very important, and they can ask me what is your current number. But in just for the sake, if you go and just put a number, then there are numbers are endless, right? And not all the numbers matters to all the startups. So that is why it has to be mutual understanding and a fair way to ask and a fair frequency of giving data. And a good startup founder will any which ways, and a good startup founder which any will have his or her own analytics at an every quarter. He just have to send it. He doesn't have to source and create the. If you're not tracking your business in any which ways generally, right? That's not a right metric. Then you're not going in the right direction. So you just have to add top up of data and send it a high frequency. And there is no IP here. If they are an investor, because SFIFS, you are also signing the agreement, they are already intellectual property bound. IP, your data is any which is protected. They are not utilizing. So these are basic understanding and the trust that you also should have.
Understood. Understood. Could you outline a few of these data points for us? Because, like you said, right, a 10-pointer document for me is an easier to generate and give it out, compared to, you said, 72 documents.
We got 79 Excel sheet
79
checklist.
documents. I mean, that's a bit over the top. But can you list out a few of the documents? Because we have to understand that incubation centers still require some format to be able to maintain that with their startup, maintain that with them, right?
So that comes at a stage, right? So if you are deciding whether to give grant or not, the data is different, because then you're checking all the past data, the last year's ITR.
Let's keep the
the
grants on
salary.
the side. Without
So
the grant,
okay,
just helping out the business, right? Just helping out the
fair.
staff.
Then all the right metrics. So for if it's a D2C company, then the CAC, the current CAC, the monthly burn, the right at least one channel, which Abhishek rightly mentioned, which is your first primary channel, and the growth rate in terms of the SKUs that you have, the number of SKUs sold, the inventory value, all of this data, basic understanding from the e-commerce angle, right? The salary burn per month, if at all any excessive beyond percentage cost which may hamper your business, like a rent and all of that, with the larger numbers, and then the weekly, monthly, year and quarterly growth of all of these numbers matters a lot, because this is where we decide are we going in the right direction or not. Let's say if I sold 1,000 units in the last month, what is my current sold, and in order to get more sell, have I burned a lot of cash? So CSE and all of that. So basic 10 15 numbers has to be measured at an e-commerce level. Similarly, for a pre-revenue company, because they don't have numbers, the numbers are different than the growth virality. So I think in startup, either you need to have profit margin or the scalability and the growth at a faster pace, right? So if you don't have any of this thing, and if you have less than 10% margin, and then you probably have business and there is no scale and virality or fast growth, then you are falling in the business criteria. So then I think the initial discussion that we did, probably you don't require a fund, or because you can't justify the fund, right? So then you have to prove either of the things. So that fund I've utilized, I'm scaling faster, maybe I'm burning fair enough with the consent that you mutually discussed. I'm not scaling fast, I'm maintaining my margins and I'm maintaining my profit margin, but this is a decent growth that we have seen, or the new territory that we have opened, the new SKUs that we are adding, whatever. This discussion has to happen at a quarterly level, I believe, with the incubation centers, and in a mutual way. So that is where I believe, and then from business to business, these numbers will vary. But I think in 5 to 7 KPIs, you can measure the business. I don't think 5 to 7 is an additional minute details that you may have, you may not get in that month, which is okay. But this 5 to 7 critical part, the burn rate, the CAC, the retention metrics, 4, 5, 10 parameters will decide your business is in the right direction.
I think his internet's having some
It
trouble.
has to happen on those parameters only.
Okay.
So sorry, I got a call in.
Yeah, no.
So the 5 to 10 parameters are sufficient to decide your business health, and then the discussion has to happen on those parameters only. In my opinion, additional things are okay, but you do once in a year. Obviously, you have to share your audit reports and everything with the larger financial updates, but that's once in a year. It's also sufficient, I believe.
All right. We are a bit over the time. We'll just take Abhishek G's 2 words on that. So, which are the normal checklists that you would prefer, that or a data room or points that you would prefer an incubation center to maintain with the startup?
Okay. So, pretty simple. From an investor's lens, again, am I audible?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's okay.
So, no, that's okay. I was also signed in from my other phone so that
Oh,
if I have to, yeah. So, all I'm saying is, I hope there is no echo there.
no, there's no echo.
Okay. So, from an investor's lens, if an incubator is basically running, let's say, a fundraising drive for the cohorts, right? Having a quick one-pager summary with all the bullet points, the traction, what the product is all about, team's backgrounds, projections for the next 2 years, how much are they looking to raise, a snapshot of it, a detailed deck, uh, the last 6 months MIS, if it's revenue generating, if your IP documentation, if the patent is filed, let you know what it is. Typically, this is again somewhere, you can say I have filed for my patent, but I cannot share information because it's confidential. So prepare a generic summary. What is you have already done a prior art search, right? Whether it holds or not. And justify what's the incremental value here. Is it a process optimization? It's a new tech that you have built out, right? So that detail is something that either an incubator as a discipline should get, or the founder should be in a position to basically deliver or produce those things when needed, right? Last bit is basically, your initial compliance information, which is what a CS can essentially get you through, right? But these are very minimal things like your startup certification, your MSME certification, your FSSAI licenses, your CDESCO licenses. These things are basically just out there. You have to put it in one place. Typically, that's that, right? Your MIS is the
Abhishek ji, we lost you there. Abhishek ji?
Yeah, hi. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay. No, I was just saying that, so from that lens, it's critical to have MIS at the right time. I mean, right in the very beginning. And, within the MIS, it should be very standardized. It is very simple. It's not that complex. It tracks all your information, your user growth journeys, your revenue trackers, your direct costs, your indirect costs, your EBIT levels. So all of those things are pretty standardized, and I think every business should have that. And this is not something that you're doing for the incubator or for the investor. Primarily, you're doing this for yourself, right? That's that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. With this, we'd like to wrap up the session for today. I'm sorry that we are 13 minutes over the time. We are open to maybe one or two questions max. We had uh, an individual that wanted to ask a question earlier. CAN operations, I think they were quite okay. Yes, Pradeep, you can ask your question.
I have two questions, one for Mitesh and the other for Jimesh and Abhishek. I'll start with Jimesh and Abhishek. Essentially, I'm a lawyer, and then I was assessing investments in the energy sector. Now I've gotten onto startups. So, because you report both to investors who take decisions and you take decisions as well based on people who report to you. So I understand that as an analyst, I'll have to understand the market, do the general learning and so on and so forth, and that's a slow process. But I wanted to know what are some core skill sets that would really help you make a decision. Summarization is one, which I understand. But apart from that, what would I see? I don't want a generic answer. I want to know what is something I can prioritize in, let's say, 3 or 4 months, and then slowly I'll get better, of course, at it.
Should I go first?
Jimesh, you want to take that?
Yeah. So, Pratik, correct me if I'm wrong. You want to enter into the investment journey and what all we, evaluate or what all we take care that you want to understand.
No. I have a job as an investment analyst for a venture studio. But my concern is what are things that I was earlier doing investments for a different asset class altogether. So I wanted to know what are things that I can prioritize because people report to you under you, right? What do you look for in them, which is critical for you?
Sure. See, I mean, so startup is a completely different asset class, right? Where, ultimately these are all a private limited company where, after fundraise also a lot of things to be done, right? I mean, so and before fundraise also a lot of things to be done. Now, especially when the stage where, I invest, a lot of things goes on the founders, phase and founders, commitment in the business, right? So what is the founders journey, founders, first venture was there or whether was a failure or success, or maybe it's the first time, then what was his earlier journey. That's my core thing, what we see to it. That's one. Secondly, at the stage where I invest, I always see the coachability, to the founder, because there are a lot of times in the journey of the startup.
Jimesh, just to interrupt you, my concern was not how do I judge a startup. I'll do the research on that. My concern was more what are the core hard skill sets that you look for in somebody who's reporting to you. I have 5 minutes to explain a startup to you, and then you take a call. So, what are the things that you look for from me as somebody who's reporting to you rather than overall analysis?
See, so someone, I mean, maybe it's more like an analyst, interview. So, I mean, take an example that, the guy who's, part of the team who is evaluating, that is the first screening, what he's doing it. He should be partially understanding the business to start with, because, if it's a, little fresher, then, what the business all about, he should understand. He should understand the finance part, basically understanding reading the balance sheet, reading the, few stuff. And obviously the guy who should be at the same time he should be learning a lot of new stuff before the market from the market, because the industry is expanding. We also are focused in terms of the some segment at some particular time, so he or she should also cope up with that stuff. So I mean, in just short, if I can answer, the person who's going to evaluate the deal on my behalf, these are the basic thing which I should see. Otherwise everything comes with the flow. I mean, once they are part of it, lot of things will come with the practical knowledge. Did I answer
Understood.
the question, Pratik, or
Yes.
partially?
That's understood. I'll.
Thanks so much, Jimeshi. For any other questions, you can reach out to them via their LinkedIn's. I'm so sorry, but we've already crossed the time limit, and our speakers have other sessions, and we have a second session lined up. We've heard from the investor side of things. We've heard about their points of concerns with the incubation centers and how incubation centers can improve their regular operations, or how startups can also improve their regular operations in order to be more investor ready or maintain investor relations. Now we'll be talking with a few of the accelerator programs and incubation centers that have actually done a very good job in this segment, right? So first, I'd like to thank Jimesh ji, Abhishek ji, and Mitesh ji. Thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking to us. They have been amazing in taking that time out. I've just reached out to them via LinkedIn, or the co-hosts have. So I think with Jimesh ji and Mitesh ji, entrepreneur reached out to them and requested them to be a speaker on the panel, and they're very happily obliged. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time out. Thank you so much, Abhishek.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Pleasure. Good day.
Bye. Yeah.
Now on to the second speakers. We have Dinesh from SeedSpark, Stanford SeedSpark. We have Megha from TechnoServe, and we have Bhavna ji from Driddle. I'll just add everyone.
Hi, Sahil. Good morning. Hi, Meghna. Hi, Bhavna. Good morning to everyone in the forum.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm so sorry that we've delayed the session a bit. The previous session, as you've seen, ran a bit more longer. Dinesh, firstly, I love the mustache. I love the new look. It's been some time since I've seen you on camera, and I have to agree that the mustache is amazing, buddy. I mean, I wish I could grow something like that. It's clearly not happening. But on to today's topic. Thank you so much for taking the time out. Bhavna, especially you, because I know it was a bit of a last minute for you. Neha had to attend. Neha from Climate Collective was going to take the initial panel. She had to drop out because of personal reasons. And Bhavna was very happy to, come on board because of that and help us out. The three organizations that you represent, right, are doing something right. Because I've been part of TechnoServe, I've been part of Stanford Seed. I've heard from so many founders that have been part of Riddle. The experience that those individuals have, those founders have, is not something that we experience in other incubation center, other accelerator programs. We'll start by a quick introduction. I want you to first walk us through what your organizations do and why are they different? What is the thing that you guys do different than other accelerator programs and other incubation centers that makes that experience better for the founder and for the investors at the same time, right? We're going to start with Megha, and then we're going to move on to Dinesh and Bhavna.
Yeah. Hi, Sahil. Thank you for inviting me here. I'm happy to be here. And to just quickly introduce my organization, I work with the Greener Sustainability Accelerator. So it's an accelerator under TechnoServe, which is a US-based not-for-profit. Our current program is funded by IKEA Foundation and Visa Foundation. So the point of the program is to impact 350 plus startups pan-India through capacity building, access to finance and fundraising, and market linkages. Currently, we've already engaged with 200 plus startups spread across 100 plus Indian cities. $16 million of funding has been unlocked with the help of fundraising, facilitation, equity, debt, blended financing. And because our key focus area is also gender, 60% plus of our founders are women founders. And the top focus areas, sectors have come across as waste management, home care, personal care, sustainable packaging, energy, agroforestry, textiles. So all of these startups, the focus is climate action, and they're sustainable startups pan-India. Now, currently, we are our cohort 3 is underway, where we have around 150 plus startups with us, which we are currently engaging. I think initially we had a lot of discussion over how we design an accelerator. the first and foremost, which is a very simple thing to understand, was having that differentiation between incubator and accelerator. Like what kind of category of startups are we going to engage with, so that our interventions and our design of the program is based on that. So I think the fit and compatibility with the right startups is something that we spent a lot of time on and evaluating them, because our topmost priority was sustainability and climate action startups. Evaluating and considering that as our top priority, we had 15 to 20 data metrics where we evaluated the startups holistically. So that I think all incubators and accelerators do. I think two important things that I feel that our accelerator does uniquely is one is we focus more on getting a real ecosystem access to our startups. So basically, it's not just about getting market linkages or collaborations or having corporate connections and CSR Foundation connections for multiple reasons, but also creating a real ecosystem for them, which is relevant to them at the stage where they are. So basically, we are startups mostly come from growth phase, growth stage startups. Then there is intermediate growth startups, and then 10% of our startups are also early revenue startups. So based on that, curating that real ecosystem, which will actually help them out in whichever stage they are in their startup, is one of the main USPs. Second, and I think which is I think the heart of our program, is creating a kind of environment of trust, accountability, and also psychological safety for the founder through through a business advisor who works in a very close connection with the portfolio that they have been assigned with. And mostly because we have seen that no matter where the founder is in their growth phase, it's always a very lonely journey. And if a startup is actually applying to an incubator and accelerator, mostly, not all of them, would be the first generation entrepreneurs, right? So there'll be always this anxiety of not knowing enough or not having the network or accessibility what maybe third or fourth generation entrepreneurs would have easily. So having that kind of trust and having, of course, all the hires that we have in our program are well skilled and have 15, 20 plus years of experience in their fields. But along with that, we also see that they have enough empathy so that they can create that safe space for the founder, to open up, and in a space where they are not judged for where they are or what they know or what they don't know, because this journey is not about knowing how much you know. It's about creating something together. So I think hiring the right people, not just with the skill as top priority, but also enough empathy so that they know where the entrepreneurs are coming from and they can create that safe space for them to open up, because most of the pain points and levers or areas where we want to do intervention with them would come from that space. It wouldn't come from some superficial space. So I think that is one of the major USPs that our program provides. Yeah, thanks.
I think that's great. And being personally experienced that with the business developers that you have assigned. So Megha was my business developer, and trust me, the experience is amazing, because what you have there is not just a hand-holding support. And this was for my first startup. It was my first time running a business. I had absolutely no idea about how to run a business, and to just have a person who is a bit more experienced on the business side of things to mentor you, to handhold you, a weekly call, that really helps. It goes a very long way. And not just in terms of the morale, but it also helps you structure your business. The formal structure that is really required, that a founder needs to follow in order to make sure that the startup is successful. That's where it comes from, right? Dinesh, I'll come to you next. Stanford Seed, amazing program. You guys again have hundreds of startups every year. You're doing an amazing job with them. Let's take it from there.
Thank you. So quickly, thank you, Sai, for inviting us to this forum, and quickly to introduce what Stanford Seed does and what is Spark program that is specific to Dr. Sai mentioned. So Stanford Seed is part of the Graduate School of Business. We conduct entrepreneurship programs and business leaders program.
Dinesh, your volume is a bit low. Could you?
All right. Just give me a moment. I'll try to switch my microphone. Is this better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Right. Stanford Seed is part of the Stanford Graduate School of Business. We run entrepreneurship programs for early stage startups, that is through the Seed Spark program, and also for SMEs that are above 5 crores of revenue. We call that a Seed Transformation Program. Stanford Seed has been operating in India, that is the South Asia region, for almost 8 years now. We started in 2017 with the Seed Transformation Program. Seed Spark program was started around 2020. We yesterday graduated the 11th cohort. Each cohort we graduate around 100 plus startups across South Asia. And we are now 839 plus startups, sector agnostic, running across South Asia. And what we specialize at Spark program. So I'm going to have all the conversation going forward, very specific to the Spark program that is relevant for our audience. And Spark program is aimed at helping entrepreneurs grow from the MVP stage to market entry stage and the seed fundraising stage. So that is, if you have a working prototype ready or a MVP ready and you just entered market, you want to move from that 1 to 10 scale, right? That early stage. That is where Spark program would come in and help you get the basics right in terms of business strategy, business acumen, also help you connect with fellow entrepreneurs solving similar problems across the same space. So the advantage we have is every cohort is 100 startups. And if you're an edtech founder, for example, you'll get to meet an edtech founder from a different geography, and you might be solving similar problems. And there will be a lot of learning and sharing that happens during the program. And we also provide one-on-one mentorship during the program duration. Every entrepreneur is matched individually with a mentor. That relationship continues for the whole program duration, and sometimes after the completion also into the network. So that handholding happens. So Spark program provides learning, networking, and mentoring opportunity for a very early stage entrepreneur who was just into the market, trying to figure out how to grow because they got the idea in the incubation stages, got their basic legal and finance things ready. But now is the business part coming in and helping them survive first and then accelerate their growth. That is where Spark program comes in. We designed this as an entirely online program to maximize reach so that we can work with a lot of non-metro startups. That's our main idea. And also make sure that we are able to reach out to startups that typically don't have access to a lot of capital, which are typically crowded in the metro cities. Right? So that is the idea. It's an online program. And the other thing that we are really proud of is we don't have direct admissions. We work with entrepreneurship support organizations. We work with incubators, accelerators, angel networks. We collaborate with them as a knowledge partner, as their knowledge partner, and we exclusively provide this program only to the members of our collaborators. Therefore, when you're an entrepreneur already part of an incubator or an angel network, you're joining Seed Spark as an offering of the parent institute. Therefore, you have support from both the organizations while you're at the business growth stage. So far, we have got from 64 plus collaborations. So we work with variety of organizations, starting from an incubator sitting in a tier 2 city academic institute to all the way up to South Asia pan organizations like Visa Founder Institute, or even with state level missions like T-Hub, Kerala Startup Mission. We work with incubators, engine networks. There be 64 plus organizations. The idea is to make sure there is a lot of ecosystem collaboration that happens while this is happening. You might be an entrepreneur sitting in Himachal Pradesh, joining us through an incubator there. You immediately have access to angel network in Chennai. Let's say you want to move to Chennai or Bangalore. We help you with that connect and all that. So it's more of a ecosystem enrichment play, and that's what we have been building so far. This is all about Stanford Seed Spark, and happy to share that Dr. Sai is also an alumni of our network, and thanks for inviting us here. Please do check out our website, and if you're a member of any of these entrepreneur support organization, and if you like to collaborate, please DM us or send us an email. Or if you're a venture scout or an analyst or investor who would like to check out angel level funding or seed level funding, we have close to 500 plus startups that are doing well and are looking to get their first check or second check. We're happy to connect them with you. Thank you, Sahil, once again for inviting us here.
No worries, Dinesh. And I can personally vouch for their program as well, because what SeedSpark does different, right, is they connect you directly to the mentor. So unlike other incubation centers, where you can browse through whatever mentor network that is available on the website, identify a mentor, and then request to be connected. What SeedSpark does is something more active. They connect you directly to the mentor and allows a similar format like what TechnoServe does, where you connect with your mentor one to one on a weekly or bi-weekly process frequency, and you discuss that business. And the mentor comes from a domain with expertise of the same impact region or the same business region. So you're able to grow the business directly from there or optimize your entire business model accordingly. That handholding support, again, goes a very long way rather than just the seminars that all incubation centers hold. They have overlapping knowledge. But the handholding support that follows those seminars is where the actual support and the key lies into supporting that startup. I want to come next to Bhavna ji. Bhavna ji, I have spoken to more than 200 incubation centers in the past 4 months. Every time when it comes to a question of matrix, we've observed that anywhere between 8 to 15% of the startups that are incubated with an incubation center, they've received some sort of investments. Yours is an outlier, right? Yours, the number is as high as 30, 33, 35%, right? Which is not just double, but way more than double when it comes to investable startups. There is something that has been done right at Riddle that other incubation centers have not been able to crack. Now, TechnoServe and Stanford Seed, they're both accelerator programs that work with incubation centers, but you are more on the incubation center side, where you work directly in more with more hands-on experience with the local entrepreneurs, right? What is it that you are doing that's different, and what is it that is causing this high conversions and high success rates, and not just from the investment side of things, but even from the successful business side of things?
Yeah. So let me first talk about my incubation center. So I am Bhavna Pandey. I lead the entire incubation programs here. I'm the Chief Incubation Officer. And we started this center as Innovation Center back in 2010, where we wanted to support ideation stage projects. And then, the entire motive was to create that ecosystem in the campus. And that time, I think there was no such ecosystem also where people can go and just build products or build projects. So the idea was that in 2010, that to first create that ecosystem and then eventually build a products line. So we started as an innovation center, and then from that innovation center, we had amazing products or projects which then commercialized and became startups. So one of such product was Square Off, which is now, so 2 years back, they sold their company to Miko, acquired by Miko, and the founders have exited and started a new company, but they've done pretty well. They've had $5 million revenue a year before they sold it out. So that was one of our very early projects, which we started as an innovation center. In 2016, we became an incubation center officially. So one of the key aspects in our incubation center is that the core team, like me and my colleagues, we all have been founders of a startup. We all have gone through that journey, of juggling, hustling, speaking to investors, finding right mentors, getting that first check, which is very crucial to get started. So we all have been there, and we all know that, we all have figured out our ways getting into this. And that's how we understand the challenges, the market space. Now it's been a decade, more than a decade for us in the ecosystem. We have supported approximately 3,000 startups through various programs. We acceleration, incubation, pre-incubation programs. So we have done so. Even in this time, we have categorized all our programs into different buckets to curate that support very accurately for each kind of startups. So we have designed a pre-incubation bucket where we have startups who are very early, so that, and this bucket is very crucial because this is our pipeline for the incubation. Then this goes to the next level. So we have focused on each of these buckets. We have supported very early stage startups right from the conceptual level. So we've had founders who just had an idea with multiple other ideas that they want to work on, and that time is also very difficult for founder to identify and narrow down to one idea and then get started working on it. So we have this entire design thinking team, which we all sit with that startup, understand what they're trying to build, their capabilities, skill sets, where it matches first, and what's the market trend right now, and then we help them figure out the idea that they should go about the first. I'll just give you an example of one of our startup. We just I think that they raised Series A in 2023. So they came in with just an idea that they wanted to build a startup which is focused on waste management or wastewater treatment. So when they came in, they came in with just an idea, and they were focusing on the domestic market first. But through our program, mentorship, and rigorous hand-holding, they then identified their market in the commercial segment, which is effluent treatment segment, which is very difficult, the very high entry barrier, and plus their technology matches it really well. And then we connected them to various investors, mentors. The very first thing that we did for them was to help them get the first check to deploy their very first device, which they can show it to their other clients, that can build trust, because that the ticket size was around 40 to 50 lakhs for one device. So for them, it was very crucial to get, and that's how they got started. We connected them to investors, they raised funds. We connected them to our alumni, who gave them manufacturing unit in Bhiwandi, so that they can start manufacturing at no cost. So we've done all of them so that they could be at a stage where they can scale to a very higher level without worrying about all the nitty-gritties of operations and manufacturing. So likewise, we have handholded so many startups in our journey, and we act like their team members. We sit with them, we understand what are the challenge, where are they stuck, how they can move forward. We connect them to various industry experts for pilots, for business development, for mentoring, for investment. So we have curated those kind of services and offerings for all our startups, and we also don't take any upfront fee from them, because again, like as founder, we understand we have no money, we have to run our startup, and without money, how do you to reach that stage is very difficult. So we take risk, the startup also take risk. They are leaving their jobs, coming here, working on this full time. So it's a risk situation for both of us, but if it works out, it's a win-win situation for both of us. So likewise, we have supported so many startups, and as an incubator, we are very proud to say that we have 6 exits from these companies. And we also won a national award for best emerging incubator in the country in 2022. So these are some of the efforts that we have been doing in the ecosystem so far.
I think that's great, because one thing that stands out in good programs versus the average program, I want to use the words right, is that the handholding support that comes, right, has actually managed to put you guys as an outlier. But this is not possible unless you as an organization realize what your USP is, what your focus is, what is the place where you can actually even help a startup, right? In India, we have Gyanis everywhere. You want knowledge, you want advice. There are people sitting under every tree, every nukkad, every chai wala, right? But to identify that, okay, my advice in this section or in this segment or in this domain of business or actually makes more sense because it comes from that sense of experience, my organization has that background, is very crucial. And many incubation centers first need to just, or even accelerators need to first just pause, take a step back and identify that USP, right? I have a question for Megha. How does an organization, right, just take that step back, look at itself from a larger perspective, from a zoomed out perspective, and identify that USP and that domain and that segment where they are more suited?
Okay. So, like I said, initially, because hand-holding platform, like organizations like incubators and accelerators, so we wanted ourselves to be distinct as an accelerator, but also understanding the kind of startup ecosystem that India has, we can't really have all the growth stage startups who are ready to be accelerated or go and scale up to next level would be opting for us. So we wanted to create something which would not just benefit 50% like of the founders who are in the growth stage, and give them curated business advisory based on what portfolio has been assigned to a business advisor. But we also have a very good lineup of people who come from different backgrounds of an expertise. So we have experts in, say, textile, who has worked in 15, 20 years in textile sector, corporates or government. For fundraising, we have people who worked in for 10, 15 years in fundraising through grants, government, equity, debt givers, and everything. So basically, getting all the skill set right, and zeroing down on the sectors that we can actually help startup and facilitate their growth. Because it should not be none of the incubators and accelerators can actually say that we have all the talent that we need to cater to the startups that are going to come to us. Most of us, like for example, I come from a very corporate product development operations research background, my own startup background, social sector also. So I would not say that FMCG has been my expertise, but I also have been assigned as a portfolio which is about energy, waste management. So it is also about evolving with the startup and understanding, not just, like I said, most of the knowledge that we get is from discussion and brainstorming with the founder, because they themselves are quite deeply engaged in what they are doing since 4 or 5 years, and they're quite passionate. And doing our own research, talking to our seniors for the sectors that we have, we can say, helping hands in all the sectors and experts. So we can of course go and take that help. We have a set of skilled ecosystem partners, we can say, who come and give us master classes, like we discussed in earlier session, go to market and creating frameworks and templates and playbooks which are relevant for the growth of a startup. So basically, what we do is we also create an internal ecosystem for ourselves as an accelerator, where we have all these channel partners, investors, then we have even the service providers, basically, because we have seen that 10 to 20% of the startups, when they're at revenue generating stage and they want to scale up, they won't have that much funds to get great talent, but they would want to outsource to at least certain service providers who can give some expertise which is needed at that moment and intervene. So it could be as simple as having Zoho with a discounted rate, or having some tie-ups in say Canva, for as simple as building a pitch for and freezing your revenue model for outreaching, having corporate linkages, because all of us come from good experience in different fields. We have our own set of kind of borrowed credibility which we can create for our own startups, which can generate leads for them. Like even simply saying that I have worked with the startups, I've assessed the startup well, and I can vouch for them. Can we have a 30 minutes call? Would be a very simple way to approach and penetrate a market or get a market linkage that might not be easier for first generation founders. So I think first we also not just focus on getting the hires and getting the team right and getting the intention right and also the sector right, the expertise right, but also building this ecosystem for ourselves, that we have these service providers, corporates, CSR foundations, investor network, debt giver network, then financing networks, NBFCs, FBFCs, and also maybe sales and distribution channel network, agencies, hiring agencies that are there in our network, so that even though we are not right away intervening for some places, we can be readily we are ready to give this kind of access to that ecosystem right away to our founders who've made it to the accelerator. So I think that is the initial homework and initial work that we do before starting a new cohort.
That's great. I mean, you have to believe that you will keep on learning and growing with your startups, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can only start with your assumptions. You can start with your expertise. You can come with your own background, but you will have to grow. You'll have to be open to the growth and the knowledge that comes via those startups. and then listen to them and grow with them accordingly.
Yeah.
Bhavna ji, you've been part of this ecosystem at a very early time. So when the ecosystem was just starting off in the 2015s and 16s and so on, at least in a large scale, in a large manner. Uh, as an incubation center, you must have made a lot of mistakes, right? And those mistakes, and then obviously you worked on them, and then that's the reason why you're able to, come out and provide the service that you do right now. What are some of those few mistakes that you made as an incubation center, as an early on incubation center, that the incubation centers of today should definitely avoid and not focus on, in order to just make sure that the service that they provide to the startup is beyond a point?
Yeah. When we started in 2015-16, the incubation layout, there was no such guideline. There's still no guideline, on how do you do best incubation practices, or what's the best way that you treat your startups, etc. So that time also there was nothing, there was no such references that we can refer to or see to. Incubation network may or may not exist overseas also. People are investing globally, but then they are not literally helping startups right from very early stage. So in 2015-16, it was very early for us also to navigate how the incubation works, how do we support startups, what are the things that we have to create for startups. So we were just doing it based on our own understanding, our own experiences, that as a founder, what we have faced, maybe those challenges can be addressed first for startups. So so initially we were struggling to find right mentors. So we created the entire mentor pool for different categories of startups that they can come and help. And plus, since that time we had no funds. That was also one of our challenge. So funds were not readily available for incubators too. So having that funding crunch, and also wanting to support startups, juggling with early stage innovators for providing resources, so we were all over there. And while we were doing that, there was also no structure in terms of what do we get in return of helping these startups. We were just going out there helping them, but there were no structure in such. And we also understood that the rental is just out of the place, that we can't charge. We know the founders may not be able to pay. And then equity thing came little later for us. In 2016-17, we decided that we should go for this model, because startup may not be able to pay. And for us also, even if startup succeeds, then only it makes sense. Then it only creates value for us. Otherwise, there's no value for us also. So that's a risk that we started taking in 2016-17 onwards. But before that, we had supported very good companies, but we did not take any equity or any charges from them. We are very proud that we have supported them at a very early stage. We had this Farm Easy company, they were one of our few of these company who were part of our ecosystem. We've helped them, supported them, but again, there was no structure. For Square Off also, so Square Off, we literally, worked with them in building that product. So earlier they were building it for blind people. We helped them go to various exhibitions, understand their market, do market research. So we've sent them to various Europe and US trip. We got that trip also funded from sponsors, so that they can get exposed and they can understand, whether their market lies there. So we did all of that, but there was no structure in terms of taking any equity or rental from them. They grew eventually a very big company. Farm Easy grew into a very big company. So many companies that have come out from our ecosystem have done really well. But of course, they still come to us. They mentor our startups. We have made that goodwill connection with them. We've done a few mistakes in terms of not having the framework prior starting this ecosystem, but also we've learned through a lot of our mistakes. One of our startup, so initially you're not doing second round of vetting of legal agreements for our startups. So normally startup receives agreement from investors and they just sign off, and then they due to some clauses and terms and conditions, they are stuck with that investor. And then we started having that second layering where it is very mandatory for startup to come back to us with an investment agreement, so we can do second round of due diligence and legal vetting, so that the startup does not face any problem in future. So those kind of things that we found, we should add more layer, make it more safe and protective for startups. Because these startups may or may not understand the legal terms. They are very desperate. Obviously, all startups are very desperate to get funds and get started and scale. But with that, there are a lot of terms and conditions come. So one of our very early startup is still struggling. He's stuck with one investor where he's not able to raise. He has 100 crore PO on table, but he's not able to raise funds because that investor is not allowing him to raise fund from anyone else than him. So, and if he raises funds from him, then he's going to give him a very low valuation. So, this entire circle is stuck. So that's why we encourage startups to come back to us, and we have put this mandatory clause also in the agreement that they have to come to us with an agreement, and they have to take our approval. Then only they can go and sign the agreement. So sometimes startup finds it very positively, like they don't take it very positively, but then we make them understand this is for your own good. We have our entire legal team sitting here wanting to help you, so that you don't get stuck with any investment terms and conditions. So some of these mistakes are like that, but of course there's few here and there, so we solved it on our ways.
Absolutely. Toxic investments and toxic grants. That's a topic I will not like to talk on because I will not shut up, right? I have had so much experience around that space. It's just beyond, my first startup, I have had plenty of experience with toxic investments, toxic grants. It is something that every startup should avoid.
Yeah,
And I absolutely request every incubation center to be there for that startup in helping them identifying them, because they completely destroy your company.
Yeah.
Dinesh, there is something that your program has done amazing. That is to utilize his network, right? From the network, I don't mean just the Stanford network. The Stanford alumni network is great. Yeah, fine, good university, good stuff, great. But not just the Stanford network. Your program, the Stanford Seed, has been able to curate a network of actual mentors. Normally, when I look at incubation center, I look at accelerator programs, there is a long list of individuals who are mentors, but none of them have any experience in the startup domain. They may come from good industries, they may come from big positions, and that definitely brings a lot of network with it. But they've never built a startup. They've always been in that ecosystem where there is a marketing budget assigned to them, then they are growing that business. And same goes the government employees who are now part of the mentor pool, who've never actually been a startup founder or even a business creator, right? But there are outliers. You've been able to filter out those things. You've been able to identify the good ones from the bad and been able to connect your startup directly to them, right? How are you as a program, as an organization, curating that network so efficiently, filtering out the good apples with the bad ones, and then optimizing it so that your startups are connected exactly to the kind of mentor that they require at that stage?
Thank you. Thanks, Sel, for the question. So I can just plainly start by saying it's a lot of work on spreadsheets, emails, calls to understand, just do the regular driver. I can go back to 2020 when we started and why we had built this model in the first place. It's a difficult model to scale, right? It's a matchmaking model of 100 entrepreneurs to be matched with 100 mentors mutually. So we don't force anyone to work with each other. We don't say you're the mentor, you're the mentee, go and work. We introduce two people after seeing their backgrounds and requirements, and then we say, would you both like to talk to each other and see if you would like to be a mentor-mentee? For the matchmaking process, we do three things properly. One is pre-matching. During the application stage itself, we get information specifically from, you would have filled Spark application, right? There is a column that says, what is the exact mentorship support are you looking for? You can't generally say, I want a mentor. You have to say, are you looking at marketing? Are you looking at general entrepreneurial coaching or a mentor from the same sector, right? It has to be very specific. So it boils down to what you're looking for in the next 4 to 5 months, right? So we get that right in the early stage. And then we have the whole information of an entrepreneur across the whole application process. So we get all their information. So that gives us a very good profile of the person along with their requirements. So we get that before the match. And with the mentor, that they also have a separate onboarding process We talk to the mentor. We ask what is their preference in terms of sector or in terms of expertise. We kind of talk to them, understand what their requirement is. So before we do the matchmaking, we just have to match 100 people to 100 people. And it's a long day work. The team sits together, does this for 3-4 days, match everyone properly. And we don't just do it for the sake of doing it, because we know it's human beings talking to each other, and it's not like emails and calendars. And we want to make sure that relationship works out well. And I'm happy and proud to say we always get it 95% correct, because we take that effort to do it. And over a period of time, once we started doing multiple cohorts, and we know the mentors even more better with their experience and feedback, we kind of understand intuitively, okay, this mentor is now preferring this, so it's easy for us to match. Now, with 5 years now, every cohort we have a repeat rate of 70 to 80% of mentors joining for each cohort. Sometimes they take a break because they want to focus on other things. Sometimes they might not feel the model is working, they will leave. And we also have new mentors, because we'll have demand from the startups, because we have a sector agnostic program. I've seen how the profile of the whole startup innovation ecosystem has changed in the last 5 years. I can tell you, just based on the 100 startups that join in a cohort, you can predict 2-3 years of the innovation that's going to happen in 2-3 years from here. That's the cycle you're able to see. And because of that cutting edge innovation startups coming in, making 20% of the cohort, we need to find new mentors who are preferably aligned to that sector. I can give you 2-3 examples. One is a startup called ProMeat, who are into creating vegetable non-meat, but non-meat vegan style tasting. That is one example where we had worked a lot to find a good mentor similar to the industry. Just the searching of the expert helps us understand how the ecosystem is. And now we have a lot of ecosystem requirement from drone specialists, aerospace specialists, who are specifically working on space and these deep tech technologies, right? And like as we get in these requirements, we started curating experts and work on these things. So that's an ongoing process. We'll keep on continuing. And one thing that we do towards the end of the program is ask the mentor separately and also the entrepreneur separately, how was their experience in that mentorship relationship, right? And it's kept confidential. So we know both sides of the story, and we kind of understand make the whole picture. Since we follow this whole journey, starting from as a program team, that we are thinking of how we match them, how it worked throughout the program duration, and how it ends. It has to build over a period of cycle. We had the advantage of building it over a period of 3-4 years. Now I'm saying it in hindsight, but there was a process to it on how that feedback, planning, feedback, and course correction happened. This happens. Right now, as of today, we have 450 plus signed mentors, and we actively engage with 200 of them all the time, because most of the time startups that comes to us are either seed level, they're looking for seed level investing, which means we'll connect them to an angel investor. And I would say 30% of them ask help in marketing or finance. So we connect them with that expertise, either with the finance expert and helping them understand finance part, or marketing expert, helping them do beachhead marketing go, or just rethink about sales and marketing. And few are only looking at sector expertise. These are specific deep tech startups across category, biotech, AI, and all very deep tech. That's going to take 5 to 8 years of at least regulatory approval, market being ready and getting things done, right? They need an expert. So this is where sometimes, like you mentioned, it's the flip or the positive side of the coin. You might need an industry expert who has done that throughout a lot of time. Let's say a new food tech company. It's good to they go and talk to an expert in a corporate setup who has worked on FMCG or food and beverages for 10, 20 years, right? So the basics are equal. They understand the problem and they are able to help the innovation. There's the positive side of working with the corporates, corporate areas, or people who want to start giving back to the society. That's how we put it, giving back to the society by helping new innovations. These mentors come into the platform because they want to talk about the innovation. They like the learning part because they've been so much deep into the corporate business and all that work. They feel that there is a lack of connect at cutting edge innovation, not happening at their end, but how's it at the startup innovation ecosystem? So they do come and join us and we work with them. Our mentor network is the equal pool of current business leaders. So all of them are CEOs, business leaders currently running a company, and they themselves are busy with their product. Another equal pool of 25% of angel investors and VC scouts, and bit more on the mature side of the investment ecosystem, and industry experts. They who want to come back and give back to society and not do this. We have been actively building this, and we are actively building this whole ecosystem. But having said that, the work is one-on-one matching and following up with each and everyone. It's not an easy task. We have to do that because of the program duration. We have to do that whole process in a matter of 15 days. Therefore, the rest of the program can continue. You yourself would have gone through the grind right? Speaking to the mentor, understanding whether that relationship works. Sometimes it doesn't work. The other 5%, the reason it might not work is maybe both the parties feel like this may not be the right thing for each of them, whether their expectations mismatch or competitive investments. The mentor would have already made a competitive investment, or the entrepreneur might feel like this might be a competition in the future, so let's not work together. So these things are also part of the ecosystem game here. It is how the whole mentor-mentee model is being grown for us throughout the whole 5 years. And we keep on experimenting now and then with a new model of introduction, new model of continuing. We also did a new model this time in the 11th cohort that graduated yesterday, where instead of one-on-one mentoring, we made a small group format. For example, if Sahil is a mentor and he's really good at marketing, or let's say biotech specific sector, right? And there are 3 startups instead of 1 startup that are in biotech and would like to understand a bit more about biotech sector and what they're doing. We would match all the 3 to Sahil, and we would sit together, talk about biotech. So it becomes very deep. I'm not just getting during that whole conversation for the mentor-mentee session. I'm not just listening to Sahil, but I'm also listening to Bhavna and Mega on the same sector, right? So it's more of a round table and a lot of conversations that are happening. So we do try similar models, one-on-one mentoring, round table, sector-based, and multiple things. What works? Giving the tailored solution to both the mentor and entrepreneur takes a lot of work, but I believe that is the way to build this ecosystem. It takes work, it takes time, but it is best we do it that way than rather doing it in a systematic way, like more of a template way.
I think that's great. Especially the idea where I someday become a mentor. I think that I like that idea more. Someday when I feel I'm an expert enough to teach someone else. Not today though. But that's a very good model that you've taken, because with each iteration, you're able to optimize the mentor services. The person doesn't have to be an absolute expert in the field to be a good mentor, but you require good mentors, right? So with each iteration, with each feedback that you get, with each cycle that you do, you're able to optimize that. You're able to identify the good versus bad, or the ones that are actually actively helping the startups connect, or whichever method that the startup is feeling value. There's a value that is being created for that startup, and that allows you to just maintain a pool of the mentors now after a few years time. And I believe you're doing three cohorts a year, or
Two cohorts a year.
Two cohorts a year.
Two cohorts, 100 startups each.
So that's 200 startups, 200 mentors we're talking about each year. That's a lot of iteration. That's a lot of mentors that are being processed through through the cycle, through the process. And that's amazing. I mean, I'd recommend every incubation center out there to follow up, to copy, right? Just take this thing forward. Take the good stuff, leave the bad stuff behind. Just implement something like that, because it'll allow your startups a higher success rate, and you as an incubation center a more intimate experience with your startup as well. Talking about the intimate experience, coming back to Megha, the business development program that you have, right, at TechnoServe, where each startup gets connected with a business development manager rather than the mentor, right? It's the other side of the coin, where your organization takes a more active role in creating that value to that bottom line of that startup. Can you walk me through your process in terms of, as a business development, the process of providing that service of business development to the startup, right? Not just the program by itself, just the service. When do you start? How do you start, right? By learning the startup and then going ahead, and how do you identify the points where you can help, and how do you go ahead from there, right? Just walk me through that process, help us understand, so that incubation centers can implement a similar stuff.
Yeah, so business development part of it is one of the things that we do. If those are the areas which we have identified for those particular startups, whether it could be market linkages or getting them the right clients. But coming to the advisory part of it, which is assigned like one-on-one curated, tailored advisory for a particular startup. So we start, of course. We are very founder specific and idea specific. So when we select them, they should be like, the coachability factor should be high integrity, and also with the founder which has growth mindset. So basically, if a founder comes with the preconceived expectations that, okay, I'm here in a program to establish a market in MNC or get a penetration in that market. So that generally doesn't work. So we need a founder who is coming with an open mind to figure out which way is the best for them. And with them, of course, brainstorming and aligning with them. It's never a one-way street. So we are very focused first. We get right founders on board. And then we are very focused on the idea that the founder brings. So basically, we want to see that the business is actually addressing certain pain point for a customer. Currently, the customer may be spending a lot of money, effort, or hacks to solve that particular problem. So how strong that pain point is, and basis that we select a idea or the founder and that kind of fit for us, because we also feel that because there is no better word in English for it. But if the more large and complex a jugaad for certain problem is in the market, the more is the market potential. So for some particular startup, maybe the TAM, SAM, SOM look like a dream that, okay, huge market potential. But maybe if they're not really solving a pain point which a customer is actively facing on a frequent basis, then it doesn't really make sense to even work with them. So we focus on both of these things. Then understanding where they are. So basically, because I said startups come from different stages. It could be an early stage startup. So basically at early stage, they're still figuring out their revenue model. It is not really frozen, or even the customer segment is not really fixed. So like I said, if you want to address a pain point of a customer segment which you are targeting, do we have required survey, required feedback, required feedback from the customers by user study or something that that this is actually validated, the customer segment is actually validated, and this business is actively solving that problem. So initial assessment is this when we start working with them. Then eventually, for early stage, we of course actively work on revenue models, which becomes one of our levers that we identify at the start, because and focusing more on the pricing strategy, because more often than not, the numbers give a lot of information on the real story than what the pitching is about or the storytelling is about. So making them quite comfortable when it comes to like P&L or balance sheets. So when we talk about P&L, it's about performance of the business. Balance sheet, it's about health of the business, and why both of these things go hand in hand, and how much we should have a control on how much gross margin are we going to earn, or the net profit are we going to earn, how much are the COGS, how is the evolution of it over the time. So we try to gauge and assess that part of it also, so that whatever observations that we make together are quite data driven. They're not dependent on some rationale that we are getting from TAM, SOM or some research documents, or even the product that the founder is working on. It is more data centric on what kind of value chain the founder is working with and what could be developed. Then I think when it comes to market linkages, which is actually the BD work, there comes a gap assessment, because most of the startups who have like incredible innovative solutions, like they've patented maybe a solution for creating this Malai wool out of chicken feathers, so it's kind of a patented thing. So there was this golden feathers startup that we had at the start. They went to Shark Tank also. So understanding that the product might be incredibly good, but for an MNC, a global organization, to really accept that kind of solution and put them in their value chain, it takes a lot more than just getting the product right. So because they would need to, they'll always see, they'll opt for an average product, but they need a low risk product, low risk engagement. So if a startup really wants to penetrate that market, first we need to assess that gap for them, that whether they can provide a low risk, high capacity, high supply for that particular MNC. If they're not ready, we make sure that we put one of the levers as assessing that gap and addressing it in a way where they become ready to actually pitch for the MNCs. So this generally happens with early stage and early growth startups. And so there we mostly feel that rather than having individual campaigns in place, we search for the collaborations within other startups, other MSMEs, other cross brands, maybe other, for example, in a waste management. So there is a wet waste company that I was working with. So the expertise was a wet waste, but then there was a company in Pune which was in dry waste, scrape deal. So the expertise was in dry. So we kind of intercollaborated with them, and so that they can not only expand their catalog, decrease the risk in their value chain, decrease the cost, and also geographically expand their business. So creating more value out of these kind of collaborations, because directly going to MNCs and if something goes wrong, then it really affects the brand badly, and also because then none of the MNCs are going to take risk on you. So it makes sense to we do the risk analysis, then we bring them to that level where they're ready to pitch for the MNCs. And for the growth level startups who've already passed that assessment, and we can vouch for them that they can take high orders and are low risk engagement for these market linkages, could be foundations, could be organizations, could be other MNCs or cross brand MNCs who want them to be vendor in their value chain. And then we design a strategy for that too, and then help them get as many linkages as we can, because today we might have 50 to 100 linkages for them, but getting them the right quality of contacts, it may be one or two, is going to change the game for them. So we don't focus on, we have a lot of network in place, but we really assess and put our time into matchmaking, that so that not the startup suffers and also not the market linkages we've created, because we want to also leverage our credibility that we have created so far. And as like before, like when I started with Greener 3 years back, it was also about developing my own network. So it's like I have always had FMCG connects in my network, maybe, or social sector connects, or startup connects, but never really in investors and all of that. So when I also get a new portfolio, I make sure that in that particular sector, I also connect and make new connections in those particular sectors, so that I start a conversation with them, understand what exactly they're looking for, the gaps in their organization, or something that they plan to do in next 2-3 years, and then so that I too get a perspective about what is going on. So it's a evolving process of business development also. It doesn't really stop with like having first 100 contacts in place. It's much more focused on assessment, giving them the right match, and then also once the match is done, creating a model or proposal that works for both of them. And essentially we more like if they're at an early stage growth stage, we prefer that there's collaboration between the startups rather than directly going to global corporates and creating their footprint there. So yeah, that's about it.
Thank you so much. That's very explanatory, and I really think that incubation centers, if they have the resources, because at least the incubation centers that are based out of business schools have the resources to provide a similar service
Yeah.
along with the interns, along with the MBA students, or any of those segments, and they should definitely explore this because it really helps, right? Not just a startup, but the incubation center as a whole, the organization at large, and it builds credibility over time. You guys have
Yes.
been doing this for a few years, and with each cycle, right, the similar thing like we have with Stanford Seed, with each cycle the model improves, you iterate, you get better,
Yeah.
and you create something that is an outlier. We are 15 minutes past 12. It is beyond the time that we've promised the speakers. We'll quickly take not more than 2 questions. If anyone has a question, please, you can raise your hand and ask the question. Okay, there is one question in the chat which says, hello, ma'am. I'm Rohan. I'm working in a startup in the field of water filtration. Uh, okay. Rohan, you asked this question yesterday to a different set of speakers as well. Uh, I don't think that'll be nice. Does anyone have any question? Yes, PS.
Yeah, just a very pointed question. I wanted to know how you guys go about. So when a startup comes up to me and then I need to assess its unit economics, I get the costing from the founder. But I generally struggle to verify that fact because it's not generally publicly available. Do you guys have systems in your incubators where you have these fact-checking mechanisms in place?
Rohan, sorry, PS, do you have that question specifically for any one of the speakers?
No, I'm good with
Okay.
anybody's answer.
All right.
So which data are you talking about? Sorry if I can
Yes,
get
Megha?
some clarity on the question. So which data, I mean, unit economics is what you're talking about?
Yes, in unit economics, they'll give me 3 different costs, right? With the engineering cost, the computing cost, so on and so forth. Especially for sector-specific costing, it's hard for me to verify that number. So how do you build these systems in your incubators to fact check on a quick basis?
Okay. I think for us, you mean to say if whatever they've shared, it's as per the benchmark in the market or not? That is the question, right?
Correct.
Or whatever they've shared, it's authentic or not? Not that, right? So basically, when it comes to a lot of the things that we research on the benchmark is over, over Google, that we get lot of the know-how. But we also have experts within our team, and also those in our network, which we speak to once we have. So, for example, if I have an energy startup in place, so there we know that in electronics maybe 40% margin is considered okay. In an energy sector, it's not easy to have that much margin. So if a business has 30 to 35, that is considered really well. So this knowledge also is something not that we fact check just basis the research or knowledge that is there on the Google, but also by talking to people in our own network who has worked in the sector extensively. So especially it happens when generally when we analyze the P&L or balance sheets in our own assessment, we have a lot of questions when it comes to what percentage of our revenue is, COGS, and how is your unit economics working. Sometimes even they have not calculated it really well. So we can't really say that, that in for a particular business, and because the market benchmark and some information that we have received is saying it should be 30-35%, then we have to just focus on that. Maybe the dynamics would be different for a startup, even with the same sector. So we don't really go on. We have a general knowledge of over a sector and what are the ideal percentages that has been going on. But when you're working with a startup, it's also important to know the value chain that they are following, right? So for some startups, maybe if say they're importing from China, which is maybe a lot more hassle free, then there could be a same sector startup which is which actually has homegrown products, and their value chain is quite longer than what it is when a vendor is Chinese. So the dynamics would be different for both of them, though the product is almost same and the sector is also same. So we can have an overview industry, of course, with knowledge and knowing other experts, talking to them. But to each its own is something that we try to assess. It's never like that. Okay, you are an energy, so 30-35% hona hi chahiye. वैसे है नहीं, like because everybody's value chain is their real USP in any business. So we have to assess the value chain first, and then come to the numbers, that whether they are making, they're justified or not. If they're not justified, then we question that, if for this particular expense, maybe, whatever you're doing is not working well. Can we find out some creative way to do it simply, or with a lesser cost? Or could we collaborate with somebody to change the vendor or negotiate better? So these things come for each their own. So we can't really put a percentage on that. That's my answer.
Understood. So essentially, you deal with experts and your general understanding and look at comparisons with available information.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, a better answer to that, PS, is you use my platform, track my startup.
Yeah,
no,
that too.
you actually build a tool just for that, right? You go back, you do your financial due diligence, you look at exactly where the startup has spent their money in their COGS, you look at the exact revenues, and then you identify whether that thing is even justified or they're just faking it. I mean, you will get a lot of youngsters out there, you will get a lot of genuine startups. A good enough plugin for me. I did not plug.
Your voice is muffled. Yeah.
Of the time, but yeah, thank you so much, PS, for that. Yeah, am I audible now?
Yeah, now you're audible.
Great. So after that, the very good speech that I just gave about my own plugin, I was muffled out. That's the universe sign, right? No, so I was saying, PS, we've built a tool exactly for that, for your
Yes, sir.
financial due
I
diligence.
heard you only got muffled in the ending part.
Ouch. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for stopping.
Oh, you can say it again though if you're
No, I'm good. I'm good. We don't want to waste more time. That was a one-time thing. All right. So Rohan has a question. He's asked this question yesterday, but he says that he did not get a very clear answer about this. How important is the education background of the founder when it comes to building the product and just building the investor confidence when it comes to the evaluating the startup in general? And
can I take this question?
Yeah, sure, Bhavna.
Rohan, we've had a lot of startups who come from a different background but wanting to build a product in a different category altogether. See, there are certain checks that we have also made looking at various startups coming in from so many years, and that's how we started that entire pre-incubation sector itself. So, see, normally we normally expect startups to have that skill set to build a product themselves. A lot of startups have died in the past who doesn't have that in-house capability to build certain product that they wanting to. Even if you don't have that education background, but if you can get someone as a co-founder who has the capability to build the product and take care of the entire technology, then you don't have to have the education background in that domain. But you need to have that expertise in-house in your team so that there is no dependency on the third party. Whenever, if you give out a contract and that company is no longer willing to take your product or is not doing well, you cannot put them on the hook that you have to build my product, right? So either if you have an expertise or if you don't have an expertise, get the expertise in the team so that you can build the product and don't rely on the third party. And this is the ideal scenario for almost everything, right? For the incubation, for investment, for moving forward any programs or any fellowships that you apply, that you need to have that in-house capability. Investors also won't invest in you if you don't have that technical or CTO in your team who can build or look after the tech even after they invest. So you don't have to get the degree, of course, in the domain, but you can get someone who has the expertise to build what you want, and you don't have to rely on anyone else than your team. So I think this would be a very straightforward answer to that. I hope you got a clarity, Rohan.
Yeah, if I may, time is not over. So Rohan, I just wanted to understand that if you've chosen this field as your product and startup, there must be some reason behind it, right? I mean, is it because you're passionate about it, or maybe you have the resources and tools that would require to start this business in the first place? Because if these two are not there, you wouldn't really choose a sector which you don't have background in, right? So it was just out of curiosity.
Rohan, do you have the either? So you don't have the background, but do you have some kind of distribution or some kind of support in that domain, or some kind of pain points that you've identified that was being missed out? Okay. That's okay.
Fine.
Yeah. So generally, Rohan, when you build a business, right, focus on either the two things that are bare minimum to even think of starting a startup. You either have a product or an IP, or you have the distribution, one of the two, right? Without that, to get into a venture and to then explore and build the team, you're spending a lot of time and resources, and that is not optimal. And that is the same thing that the investor look at and the incubation center as well. Yeah. All right. All right. Do we have time for one more question? Are the speakers okay with that, or should we wrap?
Yeah, okay. Okay with it. Yeah.
Okay. Haran, you can ask your question. This will be the last question.
Thank you, thank you so much. Just I want to ask question to Mr. Dinesh Kumar. Like he said, he Stanford is collaboration with incubators and VCs for collaboration. So that if what are the criteria, or else what are the procedures to collaborate with the Stanford? From we as an incubators, we want to collaborate with the Stanford. What are the procedures we have to follow and the criteria and all? What are the they expect something for this? I want to know in detail.
Thank you, Mr. Lakshman Kumar. So, are you part of an incubator network now? Like, are you leading any network?
Yes, yes, we are an incubator from Tamil Nadu.
Okay.
Tiruchirappalli region, Kongnod Incubation Center and Startup Association.
All right, great. So I can just give you our email ID. You can set up. Usually we do one-on-one calls with the managers and understand your portfolio. It's a long call. Let's get over a call and we can discuss. I can share you my our program email ID here. You can drop in a note there, and our team will follow up for a call next week.
Yeah, sure.
Right. The email ID is in the chat. It's seedspark@stanford.edu.
Got it. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
We usually set up one-on-one call, talk for a long time to understand the mission fit and all that. So there are no strict criteria. It's basically depending upon how your organization needs, the portfolio size of the companies, and what is the kind of support that you would get from as a knowledge partner from seed. So that's what we look at. We look at alignment first, and before we get on this. Please write us an email, and we'll definitely follow up.
Yeah, sure. And may I know your available time to discuss for this in future?
Of course, yeah. Please email us. I will follow up with the meeting time and all that through the email.
Sure, I do. Thank you so much.
Sure, thank you.
All right. Please reach out to the speakers via LinkedIn if you have any further questions. Thank you so much for the time that you guys have taken out. Dinesh, Bhavna, Megha, I really thank you for the time that you've taken out for this conference. The recording of the conference will be posted on YouTube. The live has already been there, but we will do a bit of an editing before we post it out there. Please feel free to ask any questions that you have in future to them directly on LinkedIn. Dinesh, Bhavna, Megha, thank you so much again for coming and allowing this poor soul to be part of this conference.
Please, Sahil. Pleasure is all ours.
Pleasure is ours, Sahil. Thank you. And pleasure meeting you, Bhavna and Megha.
Yeah, same here.
We'd love to connect with both of you and
same.
Love to connect and explore.
It's lovely to share the panel with you and speak to you and getting introduced to your work. It is amazing. So thank you.
Thanks to all those who are listening to us. Please do get in touch. We are an ecosystem, so let's build up the ecosystem together. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.